Many of my students cracked the interviews and got the jobs. And I believe you can also do the same. Hello friends, nowadays most of the React applications do use Redux also, especially the big applications in MNCs. Redux is always used with React. So if you are interested in working in MNCs, big companies in React, then today I am going to cover the top 10 Redux interview questions for cracking those React interviews. If you are new to Redux, then still you will understand all the questions because they are arranged in a step-by-step manner. And if you already know Redux, then you can treat this video as a mock interview for your practice. How? Just listen to the question, pause the video, think about your own answer, and then listen to my answer. Okay? Hey, my name is Happy and I help candidates in cracking React interviews by posting React career related, jobs related and interview guidance related videos. If you don't want to miss those latest videos on React, then hit the like and subscribe button. Now let's start with the first question. What is the role of Redux in React? The first simple answer is Redux is an open source JavaScript library used for state management. But in interviews, you should give a more detailed answer. This is not enough. For example, suppose in your application you have 4 components. Now you can manage the state of these components by using a centralized store. And that is the main point about Redux. A good definition is Redux provides a centralized store that holds the entire state of an application and allows components to access and update the state in them in a predictable manner. All right. Now, how this centralized store pass the state to the components? For that, this centralized store uses reducers, then actions, then dispatchers to pass the state from store to components. Great. Now you got the idea. Now in upcoming questions, we will see the details and the process of all these Redux elements. Before that, here is the simple definition which I already explained if someone want to revise it from the book later. What is the flow of data in React while using Redux? Great. So if you are using Redux for state management in your React application, then you must understand the flow of data in it. Right now, I will share the flow only, but in upcoming questions, we will see questions about every element of this flow. Okay. So first, user have the access of UI present in the component return method, right? Now the user will interact and trigger the action from components like click or mouse movement something. Then component will perform the action by help of the action creator function. Okay, which is normally present in the action.js file. Name of the file depends on you only. Then action will be dispatched to store. Now store will receive the action and it already have the previous state because it is a centralized state store only, right? Now both action and previous state will be sent from the store to the reducer, and reducer will have all the logic to use the action, and based on the previous state it will create the new state, okay, based on action and previous state, and that new state will be passed back to store, and then store will hold the state or store the state inside Redux store, and from there it will pass it on to the components whenever required. Okay, whenever required. If it is not required, it will not pass it. So meaning this reducer and store are only responsible for updating, storing and distributing the state to all the application components, right? Great. This is the whole idea and the flow of Redux in React applications, which you always have to remember. Now, in the upcoming questions, we will see how step by step you can implement Redux state management in your React application, and especially what is the role of each of these files in that implementation in detail. We will see. Okay. All right, friends, before we hit the next question, if you have not yet accepted my never give up challenge, then accept it. Make a promise and commitment to yourself, no matter how tough it gets, no matter how many rejections you will face, but you will never give up until you crack the interview. That is also my own struggle story with interviews. Accept this challenge by writing never give up in the comment section right now. Trust me, the moment you write it, you will feel an instant boost of confidence and motivation towards your goal. What is the role of a store in React Redux? Again, if you remember the flow of data in React Redux application, then an action will be dispatched to store, and store will pass that action and with the previously stored state for creating the new state. Now here is the code for the store.js file. You can see this store is using the configure store function from the Redux toolkit to create the Redux store with a specific reducer. Okay, so here the reducer counter property will be set as the updated state from the counter reducer function of the reducer, which I will explain later, and the same updated state counter will be stored inside the Redux central storage. Okay, so that is one job of store, to store the updated current or latest state received from the reducer. Second job of store is from Redux store, the state will be distributed to all the components. And you remember that connect function in component which we used, that was helping this store to get the actions and from the component and then sending back the current state to the component, right? So finally, 2 points you have to remember about a store. First, the Redux store enables the application to update state using the defined reducer. Second, the Redux store is a centralized place for holding the state of all the components in the application, and it distribute the state from there only. That's the brief idea about the store, and it's very simple. What is the role of the reducer in Redux? Here in the diagram you see store will get the action from the components and action creators, and then store will send the same action and previously stored state to the reducer function. Then here is the reducer.js file code receiving the first parameter state from the previously stored state in store, or if there is no state present, meaning the application is running first time, then you have to then the initial state count 0 or 1 for increment decrement functionality, depending on the project requirement only, that will be set here in the reducer itself. Now the second parameter action was received from the store, and here in reducer all the logic will be present for updating the state based on the action and based on the previous state, and therefore creating a new updated state. That is the job of the reducer. And after the state update, this counter reducer is exported, which we know was used in the store, right, to set the new state. Okay, so that is the role of the reducer. It has nothing to do directly with the component or with action creator. It only deals with the store only. Okay, getting the data and state and action from store and giving the new state back to it. That's it. That is the job of the reducer. Proper definition of reducer is: a reducer is a function that takes the previous state and action as arguments and returns the new state of the application to store. Great, that's the answer to this question. Explain the core principles of Redux. Very important questions. Core principles are the principles as per which Redux works, and because of those only, it provides many benefits. Now let's quickly see these principles and try to relate these principles with the different files, code, and most importantly with the flow of data, which we already know. Then you can easily remember them, right? First principle is single source of truth. This is the most important one. The entire application is stored in one place in the store, right? That simplify data management and ensure a consistent, true and single source for the state and for the view of the application. Okay, so that is the first point. Second principle is state is read only. See, state cannot be directly modified because if you can see the state change flow, it is unidirectional. To make changes to the state, you need to dispatch an action, update it, store it, and then distribute it again. So this ensures that the state transition is traceable, okay, because the previous state is gone, the new state has been created, the same state is not changing, right? So state is read only. Third principle is changes using pure function, which are reducers. This ensures predictability and consistency because reducers are the pure functions. So predictable, you have many times heard this word predictable. Redux is predictable, state should be predictable, right? And the pure function. Why pure function? What does it pure function mean? Pure function returns the same result if the same argument is passed, and it is a concept in JavaScript, okay? So which I already explained, that if you are passing the same arguments again and again, the result is also going to be same. And you can say that, okay, that's a normal thing. Yes, same arguments will give. No, impure functions are also there, and if you are new to them, then just explore impure, then you will know the actual benefit of pure function, okay? The fourth principle is actions triggers state changes. So basically, plain JavaScript object actions, which we call, describe or they lead the state changes. What happens? Action only guide the store to invoke reducers, right? And update the application state accordingly. If there is no action taken, then there will be no state change, right? So the principle is action only trigger state changes. Fifth principle is predictable state changes with actions, which I think already covered, because state changes are determined by actions. So based on user actions, we can predict what will be the change in the state, right? You can predict, that is what is predictability. On the based of the action, if you are incrementing, then you know that the result, the state, the updated stated will be what? It will be the increment result. So that is predictability. And that is good for debugging and for the consistent behavior of the application, the predictability. Without this predictability principle, there can be random changes in the state, and that will be very difficult to handle then. Great. These are the 5 core principles of Redux, and here I have put down the summary of all the principles which I already explained, in case if someone is interested in revising these principles from the book later. Hi friends, just a small notification. This video is part of my full course Top 200 React Interview Questions, including topics like React Hooks, Redux, TypeScript, etc. All questions PDF book link is also present below in the description. So, like these candidates who cracked the interviews and got offers via this course. And if you don't want to miss anything for your interviews, then you can try this course. Otherwise, no problem. Let's continue. What are the differences between local component state and Redux state? Let's quickly see some differences between local component state and Redux state. First, in local component state, scope is limited to the component only where the state is defined. Okay. Whereas in Redux case, scope is global and accessible to across all the component via the Redux store. You know it. Second difference is local component state managed internally by the component only, whereas Redux state managed externally by the Redux store. Okay. Third difference is local component state are generally more performance and good for small scale applications. Okay. Whereas Redux state are good and give more performance with the large applications. Fourth difference is local component state are simpler to set up and manage, right? Whereas a Redux state are comparatively complex to manage. Okay, in big application they will be easy, but if you implement in small application, then it will be like an overhead. And the last difference is local component states simpler to test with component specific state. Testing is easy for component specific test, whereas Redux state requires more comprehensive testing due to global nature and multi interactions with components. Maybe testing tools will be needed. Great. These are some differences between them, the two. What are the challenges or disadvantages while using Redux? Everything has some pros and cons, and so is the case with Redux also. Let's see 6 challenges of React. First, boilerplate code. Implementing Redux then requires writing, boilerplate code. Boilerplate code matlab, sorry, means actions, reducers, stores. Okay, so that increases the code volume and the complexity of the code, your code then. Second challenge is learning curve. Understanding Redux concept can be challenging, okay, especially for those who are new to React state management, right? Third challenge is verbosity and complexity. So as your project grows, Redux code may become complex, okay? So it has to be done very properly structured. Otherwise, when project grows, it will be then a problem then. Fourth is overhead for a small project. Never recommended for small projects. Redux may introduce unnecessary complexity, okay, which is not good. Fifth, global state for local components. That is very good point, okay, because if you are using local state which are specific to components only, for them you are using the centralized store, which is unnecessary, right? So now it depends on your application component states, whether they are local, then don't use Redux at all. So if it is global, then use it. Sixth is integration with non-React libraries. Integration Redux with non-React libraries or framework then may again increase the complexity. So the summary is use Redux for big projects where complex state management between multiple components is required. Okay, not for small projects, not for local state components, right? And here I have provided the summary of each point which I already explained, but yes, it will be great if someone wants to revise it from the book. What is a provider component? How are components getting the state from the Redux store? The answer is the provider component of React Redux will make the Redux store available to all connected components. Okay, So for example, in this code, you will first import the provider component from the React Redux library into your root file or entry point of the React app. Then you will wrap all the components like the counter component and other components which want the state inside this provider component like this only. Okay. That way you will be able to pass the state to all the components from the Redux store. Okay. And then in the component, you can receive the state and there you can access the property as per your requirement only. So that's how basically the components are getting the state from the Redux store. Okay. If you remember that context API use context provider consumer concepts. So this is almost the same thing but used by the Redux this time. Okay, that is the only difference. Concept is same. Yeah, that's the answer to this question. What is the role of connect function in React Redux? Let's quickly revise it. Here is the connect function imported from the React Redux library. Then here is the function to send the action object to store. Then here is the function to receive the state from the Redux store. And finally, like this, we will use connect function to pass both of the above two functions as the parameter and with the component to connect with the Redux store. Got it? The simplest definition of connect function is the connect function is used to make the connection between a React component and the Redux store. That's it. Explain the concept of middleware in React Redux. Now we already know the flow of data in React Redux application like this. In this diagram, if the scenario or requirement is complex, then we can use the middleware also. So basically middleware sits here between the action dispatch and the store. Okay. So basically this middleware will only post the and get the data from the API, and based on the data it can modify the existing action. So like after using the thunk, so it is mostly used with middleware used with thunk action creators only in the complex scenarios. And then after deciding the action, that action will be forwarded to the reducer with the previous state to derive the new state. That's the all the idea. Okay. Here is how we can configure the Redux store with middleware by assigning the middleware property to thunk. Okay, which will then get the data from the API. Great. Finally, 2 points about middleware. Middleware provides a mechanism to add extra functionality to the Redux store. And second point, more important, how does it provide that extra functionality? Middleware can intercept actions, modify them, or execute additional logic in actions before action reach the reducer. Okay, so you got the idea. It's like the API is coming, modify the action, and then actions are sent to reducers. We are basically modifying the actions in the middleware. We are intercepting the actions in some way, not just by API, by tokens or some way. So that's like the brief idea about the middleware. All right, congratulations for completing all the questions. If you have reached here, that means you have the courage and patience required for cracking the interviews. Just don't stop here and keep rolling until you get your goal. Okay? Only one recommendation from my side. If you have not started yet, then start giving interviews. As I always said, interviews are the best form of learning. Interviews help you not just in learning, but if you are selected, the reward is very, very good. Okay. And if you are not selected, then remember, you will still lose nothing. Not giving interviews is even worse than facing rejections in interviews, because not attending the exam means the opportunity is gone. Companies will hire someone else, they will not wait for you. Okay. But if you are rejected in interview, then at least you will learn new things and next time you are more prepared, right? So start giving interviews and do accept my never give up challenge until you crack the interview. Okay, accept the challenge now by writing never give up in the comment section. Finally, all the best from my side, and I will support you in your career journey by posting the interviews, careers, and the job videos continuously. Join my interview cracking community by pressing the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much.